Yay! Okay. um, so this week you guys are working on pictographs and bar graphs, which we've done a little bit of in class, not during math time necessarily, but like when you guys graph your spelling tests and just in other little activities. But I wanted to go over it with you guys, so I'm going to start with pictographs, okay? So this is going to talk about pictographs. Now, a lot of times when you make graphs, you start with something called a table, okay? So if you look right here, this is what we call a table, okay? It always has a title so that you know what the table is talking about. And then it has its labels or its categories. And then it has numbers, okay? Now this table is called stars. So I just made it up. But you can think about Mom, Dad, Luke, and Emma went outside at nighttime and looked at the stars, and then they made a table to show how many stars they each saw. So if we look at our table, we know that Mom saw 7 stars. Dad only saw 3 stars. Luke saw 5 stars. And Emma saw 2 stars. Okay? So if you look at a table, that's what it shows you. It shows you the people or the labels, and then it shows how much of each, okay? So we can take this table and we can turn it into any kind of graph that we want. Okay, right now we're going to turn it into a pictograph. Now the reason why they call it a pictograph is because the graph is made out of pictures, okay? So I've got my graph ready, but it doesn't have its pictures yet. So just like how the table started with a title, anytime you make a graph, it has to have a title, okay? So that people know what your graph is about. So this graph, the title is stars, just the same as the table. And the labels need to be the same as the table too, or else it's not going to make sense if you use different labels from what your table was. So we've got Mom, Dad, Luke, and Emma. Now the difference between the table and the pictograph is the pictograph's not going to have numbers. It's going to have pictures to show, okay? So since we are graphing how many stars each of them saw, a good picture to draw for each of them would be stars, okay? So I'm going to draw stars to show how many each of them saw to make my pictograph. Okay. Now the important thing to remember when you're drawing your pictures for the pictograph is that you have to make sure that they line up, because let me show you an example. So Mom saw 7 and Dad saw 3. So if I draw 7 stars for Mom, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? And Dad saw 3 stars. Now, if I don't line up Dad's stars with Mom's stars, if you look at the graph, it's not really going to make sense. Let me show you what I mean. If I do Dad's stars really big, 1, 2, 3, look. Dad's and Mom's stars end at about the same spot. In fact, Dad's almost kind of end a little bit after Mom's, right? So if you're just looking at it, it looks like Dad saw more stars. If you weren't counting them, if you're just looking at how far they go, it looks like Dad saw more. Is that true? No, right? Dad only saw 3. So in order to make sure that our graph makes sense, I'm just erasing this, you have to line up your pictures, okay? So Dad's first star has to go right under Mom's. His second star has to go right under Mom's. And his third star has to go right under Mom's. And that's it, because he only saw 3. Okay? Now it's easy to tell that Mom saw more, right? And if we line them up like this, it's easy to tell that they both saw 3, but Mom also saw 1, 2, 3, 4 more than Dad. Okay? Now we need to do the rest. So Luke saw 5. So just like how Dad's had to line up, Luke's have to line up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just making sure they line up. 5. And then Emma only saw 2. So we're going to line up those ones. 1, 2. Okay? And now we have our picture graph. Okay? The picture has to do with what they saw, and they're all lined up, right? The first star for each of them is all lined up. The second star is lined up. Third, fourth, fifth. Now, pictographs are really cool because you don't really have to do any counting. There's no numbers. You can just look at it and answer some questions. So if I said, who saw the most stars? If you look at this graph, you just see whose line goes out the farthest. Mom's, right? So mom saw the most. Who saw the least? That would be Emma, right? Now, if I said, how many more stars did Luke see than Emma? It's really easy. We actually don't even have to do an equation if we don't want to, because since we lined up our stars, we see that they both saw this one, they both saw this one, but then Luke saw 1, 2, 3 more, right? So just by looking at the graph, we can see that he saw 3 more that Emma didn't see. So we know that the answer is 3. If we said, how many stars did mom and dad see together? We can do an equation. We can add mom's stars plus dad's stars. So mom saw, look at our table, 7, and dad saw 3. So we could do 7 plus 3 equals 10. Or we could just count their stars, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And know that together, mom and dad saw 10 stars. Okay, so that's pictographs. They're pretty simple. Most of you guys are doing really good on them. I just wanted to go over them just to make sure that you kind of understood them. So the important thing to remember with pictographs is that your pictures are all the same and that they line up, okay? You can't have mom draw stars for mom and then draw moons for dad and draw squares for Luke or something, okay? The pictures need to be the same and they have to line up so that it's super easy to tell the information about who saw more, who saw less, and those kinds of things, okay? So that is pictographs.